Buckle up and welcome to the Less Consulting Puff podcast, episode number 16. Paul and Alisdair dig into the new SAP Toolchain concept and look at some of the other trends reshaping the SAP ecosystem, including the rise of the SAP Business Network and the start of the S/4HANA demise. This is a wild one, enjoy. Dragon ERP helps mid-tier organizations define and deliver their intelligent SAP journey. Request your copy of our SAP SaaS ERP Customer Adoption Guide that covers everything the C-suite must consider to plan for success. Why does this matter? Well over 70% of SAP programs stall. They don't fail, but they certainly struggle to deliver the expected outcomes. So if you need help, then speak to a dragon.
So, good morning, Paul.
Hey, Alistair.
So, this is episode number 16 of the Less Consulting Puff podcast, where we talk about all things SAP and all things going on in the SAP ecosystem. So, today we are going to have a chat concerning an area which you're becoming an absolute subject matter expert in and a must go to, and that is the SAP integrated Toolchain, and hopefully the slides up there.
Yeah,
Interesting. I have to say, Paul, I absolutely love it. I really, really love it.
I'm in the same boat as you. And if I give you my cynical side, I haven't been excited about technology for a long time. And when Signavio came along, I went, oh, okay, this is interesting. LeanIX, great. ALM, okay, ALM is not 100% there yet. And potentially you're going to be using a little bit of Solution Manager and a little bit of ALM, but ALM will get there and Solution Manager will be retired. But yeah, I am, as you said, excited about it. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I think from my perspective, we first started to get a feeling this was going to happen back in November 24 when Christian Klein spoke at the investor call and said, look, with the service offering not particularly good at the moment for various reasons, and we're going to fix that. And then our good friend Thomas Salsig came along and did just that. And I think that there were some important factors here, and we were talking about it earlier. I think the one is that CIOs, CFOs really need to understand that when they invest in SAP, above and beyond the core S4 and Business Suite applications, they've got to invest in the tooling which enables them to sustain and embed the transformation. So there's a bit which says the tool chain is an add-on, but it's a real must-have add-on, and it will increase the total cost of ownership. And I think you said the other day, SAP don't give anything for free. I mean, what's your thoughts about that in terms of, the costs associated to it?
Okay, it's never cheap, but isn't it? It's always going to be better than taking the tools that your SI bring with them. They've all go and reinvent the wheel. They come with something that worked on one client, and it tends to only be an Excel with macros in it. And they get it in the door in a fixed price and go, oh, this is not fit for purpose. Now you're going to go and buy something else, which is, then your customer loses confidence and everything because your bill goes out the window. You're straight into change control territory. Look at the tool chain right up front. Your LeanIX, massive, fantastic reporting coming off the back of that. Signavio, get your processes documented so that they're teachable, reusable. You can do governance on them. You can show them to auditors going, that's our process. There it's all documented. And now look in the system and see that we're following it. You can put process governance on top of that. Then you've got ALM. ALM is fantastic for helping you to you look at Activate. Look at any methodology. it doesn't actually deliver your project. But if you're using ALM along with that, it's going to bring you a million miles faster and further towards where you need to be.
Right. I probably disagree with you with that, but
Yeah, well,
I think just going back, I think we're doing a lot of stuff at the moment, talking about our turnaround service and about stabilize and how we stabilize customers, and then we push them forward as part of our surge. And what's really clear is that the bulk, so like 80% of SAP programs, they don't fail. Okay, very few SAP programs fail, but they do struggle at about the 65 to 70% complete mark. So that's in the middle of realization phase, when suddenly the business becomes truly aware of what's going on. And I think the tool chain certainly helps the delivery life cycle. So I think if we went through it and looked at sort of like LeanIX, I mean, I think LeanIX is absolutely fantastic. And let's think about why it's so good. From a private equity carve-out perspective, it provides that warranty for not only the enterprise architecture which is being acquired, but it really gives that view of the high-level target operating model. So, you know, LeanIX is a must-have enterprise architecture tool. And I think it's something what we've said is part of our phase zero, in terms of when we do phase zero, it's all about the enterprise architecture, and LeanIX is a fantastic tool for that. And you've been involved in that quite a lot recently, haven't you?
You know, I think there's one little bit missing, well, a little bit missing from LeanIX. And if there was an auto discovery out there, if it was able to go out there onto your landscape and go, it's got an IP address, it's got a MAC address on it, and what is it? And my logic behind that is, a number of years ago, we were moving a data center for a large client. And a couple of months later, CFO pulled me and said, we're still being invoiced for that. What's going on with that? I thought we were out of that data center. I said, yeah, we are. And I actually had to go down to that data center, and we found that there was an old modem still plugged in. We were being charged for the whole haul. And it wasn't being used. It was still plugged into the power.
Yeah.
It was doing nothing. But you still got kit here. We're charging you for everything. So you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
But if it's connected to your network, it's got an IP address, MAC address, whatever is on there, you can go, what is it? Where is it? And we're moving data center. Let's get it out of there. And then you have more control over your whole assets.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
especially if there's something that shouldn't be on your network, what is that? Who's using it? Get it off.
yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I did hear that they are looking for LeanIX to do just that, to be able to drop in on an architecture and start to sniff out. So it's the old sniffer software. But I think post some of the recent cyber attacks, I would imagine that CISOs are going to become more and more anti third parties dropping onto and getting into their domains and letting loose sort of like agentic AI sniffers looking for that enterprise architecture view. It sounds good, but I think from a security perspective, I think it's a nightmare. You know, you spoke about Signavio. What's your view about Signavio?
I love it. And I think it's a bit expensive, but that is, and my most hated saying, it is what it is. I do think if that were to be packaged up with your LeanIX, Signavio, and not into RISE, package and your ALM all packaged together to help customers get over the hardship. And it's not actually, you know what? It's not that hard to implement an ERP system. As you say, they tend to stall in around realize phase.
Yeah.
And if customers to look at the tool chain in the first instance and go, we're going to use these to as enablers to get us there. Great. You're less likely to stall at that point. And the only issues then you're going to get is getting in your own way, which very often happens.
Yeah.
But you've got the technology, you've got the processes, you've got the world-class ERP system. So the only thing, get out of your own way after that.
I think you're right. And so I think it's almost like a spectrograph for you, which is it's going to cost you 10 million whichever way you go. And probably the route of less resistance and less pain is by using the tool chain. You're going to have to pay for it, but it certainly ensures that from day one, you've got high levels of quality, but it also means you're really reducing the operational risk. The operational risk throughout the implementation and embedding and sustaining the chain, but also the operational risk as you go on to support it. And I think that's important. I think for me, Signavio is important because we always talk about the need to understand the as is before you can go to the to be. And there's consultants out there who just don't get it, who just think you can just drop it straight onto a to be without really understanding the as is. Signavio is really good in terms of one, understanding what you've got and getting a degree of documentation. So Signavio is really good when you've got sort of like an ECC system or a legacy S4, which has been badly maintained or badly implemented, and you don't have that sort of like rich tapestry of sort of like process documentation you really need going forward. So Signavio is a really good tool just in terms of sort of like process remediation to start off with. But it's a fantastic tool when you start to look at the ability to understand the as is, and then look at your to be in terms of process orchestration and refinement, moving on to new business models, and then driving out the value proposition. Then we use it, don't we, in terms of our sort of like leap rate tooling, in terms of our front load, where we have the ability to sort of like implement greenfields by going in and really using Signavio to interrogate the as is before we then look at the to be.
But then if I kind of flip that argument on its head a little bit, and I've got this from talking to change managers, the more you focus on the as is,
Yeah.
like the more potential you have of bedding down the current processes in with the users in the system. Because that's the way we do things. That's the way we're going to carry on doing things. We're not changing anything here. So understanding the as is rather than digging into the detail. Going, that's the way you do it now. You could have done it better, but let's not. Let's not focus on that. Go.
I think you just need. I think you need to do. Yeah, so I think that's valid in terms of that higher level view of the as is, so that you can do the organizational change impact really up front. So you should do an organizational change impact as part of phase 0 rather than waiting. And I agree with that. But I think my point is more around, from a change management perspective, they're right, because you don't want to put in the level of resistance to change. You don't want to give the users the excuse to just fall back on must have, must trusted, because as part of the blueprint phase, we're able to then evangelize process optimization and what good looks like going forward. I think it's just in terms of where you do have a problematic as is, if you've got a problematic BAU where you want to stabilize the BAU and you really have really poor process documentation, then Signavio is a really good tool for going and understanding what you're doing currently and bringing it to the fore.
Isn't that, sorry to cut in here, but isn't that kind of, there's a step before that when you go back to your vision, your strategy, target operating model, that things are not ideal right now. It's like, what do we do well? Keep doing it. What do we do not so well? Do we want to get better at? What do we do badly that we shouldn't be doing at all? Let's stop doing that. What are we not doing at all that we should start doing? And so that comes all into your vision and your strategy. And then you build your target operating model. Sometimes, and like to your point, if you've got a really problematic BAU, do we want to flip it completely and go best practices, standard as much as possible? Not, I know everyone talks clean floor and it's all wonderful, but it's airy fairy and technically possible to get to, but too much of a challenge from a business point of view, in my opinion, to get there. So get as good. Let's not let good get in the way. Sorry, great get in the way of good.
I think that's fair enough. I mean, I think that's a fair comment. I mean, I think as we roll forward with the new business suite framework, everything's going to get broken down into line of business. And I think there's the opportunity to go back in time and time again with Signavio and keep interrogating the as is, because what you're not going to get anymore, Paul, is the big rip it out and start again. That's over. That's done. Just because the mainstream SIS providers don't want to acknowledge that, the day of your big S4 is gone, because SAP have moved away from S4 now. Wasn't mentioned at Sapphire. It's all about suite. It's all about the suite framework. The suite framework's all around line of business. That starts off with Composable S4 and then the wider application suite around it. And I think when you go in now, we'll be interrogating a line of business, okay, opposed to interrogating an application. And I think that's a bit of a sea change. I think there's another bit, which is just in terms of one of the really problematic things which has been going on in our ecosystem for a long, long time, and has really caused a lot of reputational damage and a lot of resistance to S4, is data. Okay, so I noticed that as part of Toolchain, data transformation via Synity is now included in there. I don't like that. I'm going to call it out. I don't like it because I don't like them. Sorry.
No, we've talked in the past about, AI doesn't need clean data.
Yeah.
I'm going to completely argue with you on that. It's it's the oldest analogy: rubbish in, rubbish out, junk in, junk out.
Yeah.
If
but that's because you don't understand it, Paul. To be honest, so that's why you don't understand. I do.
No, you understand it, but most organizations don't. They don't get it. We've all worked with organizations in the past. And one, I'm not going to call their name out, but they put in ACC. They didn't train anybody. They didn't clean their data. They didn't do any process optimization. And then they went to do the same thing again. And they said, oh, it's too early to start the data. I'm going, it's never too early to start the data. So yes, if you're where you are and let's say your advanced level of understanding of it all, most people are not. Most organizations are nowhere near that level of maturity.
And I think it goes back to, again, when you look at that data migration space, and there are a few major players out there who dominate the SAP data space, okay, what they fundamentally don't manage expectations around is the level of business involvement. So you've got to have business involvement in terms of the cleanse. You've got to have business involvement in terms of transformation, because it's not object to object. There's the transformation involved, and also they don't manage expectations in terms of validation. Now, where AI comes in now is that AI loves dirty data. It really does. And the reason it loves dirty data is because you've got agentic AI sitting at the front cleaning your data. So example being in the latest MDG update, okay, which came out with FPS 03. They've now got agentic AI built into SAP MDG, which actually goes in and actually checks the customer and vendor master data, as an example. And so you're starting to see that more and more. So you're going to get AI really working across the legacy estate, cleaning your data. Okay, so AI loves dirty data because it's actually going to clean it. Okay.
What I actually like them without talking products so much, but Bluestone X, they're maestro from the MDM point of view.
Yeah.
They had a great demo yesterday. They've got a lot of AI built into that as well. As you know, I'm cynical about AI because version 1 of anything, I know we've had AI since 1955 or 56, right? Okay, so it's not new, but it's new in the realm of the general population, if you like. Most organizations are only starting to use it. So it's still at version 1 from a business use perspective. So it's going to take a while to get there. And it doesn't matter if it's MDG or whatever other product, uh, what the guys do at Exmateria, what Bluestone do, what
Yeah,
Unity do.
but I think the problem is that when you're doing a big S4, right, it's one program, okay, and you don't sub out one of your critical path activities to a third party, and then don't put the same level of rigor around it. So if you're doing data cleanse, okay, there's a shed ton of volumetrics around data cleanse.
Yeah.
So why aren't you managing the volumetrics? Why is there no critical path to those volumetrics? Why is it always out of control? Why is the data work stream always one of the ones which causes you the most pain? Why do you get to the point where your data loads never work properly? Why do you get to the point where you can never validate the data? It's got nothing to do with the tooling, got nothing to do with SAP. It's about not mentoring the customer and about these major players in the data space fundamentally never getting their act together. Right. So the tool chain's great, and it's great having it there, but it's not going to improve it because the partners themselves aren't particularly good at doing data migration. There's your problem
100%,
statement.
100%. But it's isn't there a situation as well, like getting the organization to putting your data owners in place, putting your data stewards in place.
Yeah.
You and me will never understand the organization's data as well as the business users will understand it. We understand the context and what the business does in and out, whatever, if they're FMCG, if they're
Yeah.
automotive, whatever they're doing, right? We
Yeah.
understand the high level, but they understand it from a customer, vendor, material point of view.
And that's why data, like integration, like understanding the legacy RISE FW, is all part of that phase zero. Because at
Yeah.
that point in time, you're able to say, I need to have global process owners. I need to have data owners. Okay. If you want MGG to work, okay, you have to think about master data in your downstream systems. There's a lot to unpack here. And I think that piece around data transformation in the tool chain from Synity, I think is underwhelming. I think that's a problem for me. It's slightly underwhelming. Let's move forward because the one I find interesting is ALM.
Yeah.
You made a comment about ALM and the ability to deliver projects. So ALM's got Activate built into it, so you can do your projects.
Mm.
For me, ALM and Cloud ALM is clearly just sole man replacement. It is.
Yep.
It is
Yeah.
sole man replacement. But I think SAP needs to really call out it's a must-have. You should have it. I don't think ALM is particularly good at delivering big programs, but I think the value of ALM in that delivery space is for your BAU continuous improvement delivery going forward.
100%. But let me add to that, right? If I gave you we'll probably use a not correct terminology today. If I give you a Tesla today, you'd be able to drive it. It'd take you 6 or 8 months to actually use all the bells and whistles are there in that and dig into the good stuff it's got built into the car. The same with ALM, the same with Solution Manager. Solution Manager for me is one of the best tools that not enough people used. Now,
Yeah.
basis people won't agree with me because they hated it, right? Because it put too much rigor around them. ALM hasn't got all of the functionality yet. I'd
Yeah.
love to see Focus build in actually as a default part of ALM. Charm is in there, which is great because it just enforces the rigor around transport management, uh, making sure that it's
Yeah.
actually released by a human at the end of the day. So there's a lot of great tools in there.
I think the bit about ALM, okay, is that they need to take ALM, okay, and maybe do a deal with ServiceNow and make ALM more hybrid so that some of the service management tooling that ServiceNow brings to bear is embedded into ALM. So ALM becomes your ITIL toolkit essentially. It's
Yeah,
everything you need. So basically, it's the tooling required for the IT service model going forward. Okay, and it includes everything. And that for me would be fantastic because it deals with your monitoring, your run and support, your continuous improvement delivery, your change management. It's got everything built into it. I think where Soulman's been around since what 2005, 2006 when it first came out.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a multi-headed Hydra, like you said. Then Charm got built into it, so it's a little bit when SCP came out. More and more got added to it, and then at a point in time they rebranded SCP to BTP. Soulman's now ALM. It's important. And for me, it's a must-have. It's a good.
Well,
I think it's a good tool. I think it's
what you're actually saying is actually almost make it invisible by integrating it into ServiceNow, but
yeah.
mandatory as part of which is brilliant.
It's part of
You know,
SAP. Yeah, absolutely.
you
I mean,
must follow the path.
yeah. I think ALM should be mandated as a must-have, and
And SAP do push it actually.
they do.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot. Now, okay, so you're getting pushback. We talk to organizations all the time. They're going, well, why do I need to spend on this and this and this? So going by the LeanIX, Signavio, ALM, ServiceNow, uh, what's the WalkMe? Uh,
WalkMe. Yeah.
if and they seem to be bundling it all together.
Yeah.
And I think what you're right is that if it was bundled into ServiceNow as well, instead of in one product, one calling it the tool chain,
Hmm.
and you must follow that path
Uh,
but still you have to have a good driver to drive it.
but here's a bit of solutioning for you, right? I don't know, Jack. I don't know what I'm talking about half the time. So what do I know? So,
I
except,
disagree with you there, but anyways,
except I'm always right. So I think I'm always right. Um, so I think that you could have a situation where you take SAP ALM, okay, and you dualize it because Joule's going to go into everything. It's cross suite, yeah. So you've got the Joule flavor of ALM, and Joule's going to work cross application, as we now know.
yeah.
So you then have that ability to cross Joule into ServiceNow, and you'd expect ServiceNow Copilot to be able to cross into SAP. And I think that's your integration touch point. Is that sort of like hybrid integrated Copilot AI agentic service piece, which brings in the best of ServiceNow, the best of Cloud ALM, and from an IT support perspective, you've got a really good cockpit going forward in terms of your entire IT service is
Well,
able to be managed through
you're
those two applications.
you're saying what I said 12 months ago, 15 months ago, which is starting off with your Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, automatically flowing into via Teams into SAP.
Yeah.
Once it all becomes integrated with ServiceNow, for example, with Teams, with ChatGPT, with Copilot as a tool set rather than so I think the bit that most people are struggling with, they're just using your AI pilots as a faster search, just questioning things. And
Yeah.
if you get your ChatGPT, your OpenAI, your Copilot, your whatever product you're using, Cloud, whatever, a Gemini, ask it the same question, you're going to get very similar answer. So if once they get integrated and we have an open architecture, so they're all communicating with each other. Yes, they can still charge you subscriptions. Good luck to them, right? But it now becomes a tool set that you can use.
I think so. I mean, because you're always going to have a situation whereby in any enterprise architecture, there's going to be a number of big beasts. So you're going to have SAP, you might have a bit of Salesforce, you're going to have a bit of ServiceNow. They're always going to be there, and I think you're right. It's going to be that sort of like a hybrid architecture, which again we always go back to plug and play.
But don't you get bored? And because I know I'm getting bored with a lot of people sort of saying, "Oh, look at our AI tool." I'm going, "Oh, not another one." It's like
Yeah.
it's But we're down to you and I are old enough to remember Betamax versus VHS. But if you know about the HD video against Blu-ray, that sort of those battles, if you like, uh, someone's gonna win that argument. Some of the bigger players will win that argument.
I think it's about dominance, isn't it? I think there's a bit that says I think ServiceNow and SAP because they don't I saw a thing the other day, which is ServiceNow are now trying to push into SAP space in terms of agentic AI providing wraparound microservice workflows to ECC, which was then going to push SAP to then just open up ECC to Joule anyway. I mean, it's going to happen. But I do think there'll be sort of like data in terms of ServiceNow keep on their patch, SAP are keep on their patch, but because they dominate the enterprise space anyway, it doesn't really matter. I just think it means that you're just not going to get anyone pushing in. I just don't think you're going to get any contenders coming into that space because these two dominate it anyway.
And you're 100% on that. Until you get some niche player that comes in with something,
Yeah,
a magic.
then SAP will buy them out. That's what
Okay,
SAP always do, don't they?
Maybe niche player is the wrong word for someone like Databricks. Databricks are awesome. They're too big for anyone to buy. But and I'm not sure that everyone understands what Databricks does, but it's a pretty good tool set in itself.
It is. If you could have, I mean, like Snowflake, Databricks, all coming into Business Data Cloud and starting to build out the agentic data fabric is a great construct. I would say that 95% of CIOs switched off when I just rambled on about that because very few organizations have got the budget to actually play with those tools. It's almost like, I'm used to going, it's when you go to the arena, go down to a harbour and you look at all the big yachts out there. We can't afford them. There's a few people who can. And it's those people who can afford Databricks and Snowflake and really make use of the data fabric. Everyone else is going to use sort of like Azure data fabric with a bit of Power BI, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that's the rubber dinghy solution. Let's go on very quickly to talk about something I find really interesting. Tricentis. Qualities. Tricentis and sort of like test.
Love Tricentis as a product. It is the new hotcakes, right? I'm a tad worried about it that if everybody wants it, will they be able to keep up to demand?
Yeah.
And we've got to be careful with Tricentis that how you buy it. Are you only going to get SAP testing? Because no organization has only got one ERP.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
want to buy, and it's a big outlay to go and buy it, right? So you want to be able to get what you need and to be able to test right your whole estate.
But there's an argument which says, I mean, I think Tricentis is very good. I think, again, going back to the ALM conversation, it's a must-have. I do think I can tell you why is because if you're talking about organizations moving into a space where there's the perpetual continuous improvement, perpetual digital Kaizen, you need the ability to do your regression testing time and time again, and you need it automated.
100%.
And
let me just add to that, right? You've got 2 drops a year on private cloud. And I think it's the same on public cloud. I might be wrong. But going forward, if you've got the on-premise on a hyperscaler, you've got 2 drops a year as well. I don't know, you've got 3
but it's going to get worse than that, because
it is.
I tell you, because you're right, but I think now we're moving away from an S4 centric architecture and we're moving towards the suite architecture. Okay. And the suite architecture is now composable line of business. You're going to see SAP are going to have to work really hard to align all their release management so that essentially you get like you just said, you maybe get 1 or 2 releases a year for that line of business across the suite. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's multiple applications will all have to sync their releases together, but you're still going to need. So I think there's an 80-20 rule thing which says when you're using Tricentis, you prioritize what you use it for. Start off with. Now, for me, my top tip would be look at what your Russian pack should look like to start off with, because that's the foundation going forward. Because you want to a legacy being an automated regression test pack to take into BAU. So that's your foundation, and then you start building around it. It is an expensive tool, but I think again, if you want to start driving quick value out of AI, robotics, and the stuff which is coming now with, I don't know, robotic edge and industry 4.0 anyway, okay, you need to have that automated regression test pack there so you can just do it and do it and do it again.
Yeah, 100%. It's like you've got to be able to regression test
Right.
everything on your estate.
A
Simple.
couple of other bits, pieces. WalkMe. I love it. I think it's
Yep.
fantastic. WalkMe embedded into Joule, game changer, next generation UX, I call it. Fantastic. Don't need Fury anymore. No one likes it anyway.
Yeah, but I'd go flip the argument a little bit and go take Fury if you want. Walk me. It's
But
what do they
the
call
thing
it?
about
Digital.
WalkMe, the whole point about WalkMe is it trains. So the whole point about Joule is it takes a user. So basically it can take someone off the street, okay, dust them down, put them in a boiler suit, sit them at a laptop, and say, okay, here's your job now. And this is what you're going to do, and here's all your key processes, and they're all going to be in Joule. Then, because you haven't been trained to WalkMe or train me, but it's that sort of like vision, which is it. The WalkMe is going to provide the knowledge management piece, that ability to train on the fly the user as the orchestrating the process via Joule, and I think that's really quite clever.
Brilliant. And the fact that it's being integrated as well as the tool chain, even better.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you okay, it might be a stretch to go take someone from the street and put them running a warehouse or whatever, or it's it's possible, not likely to happen, but as organizations change, as you buy and sell, as they implement new functionality, or we didn't have a warehouse management system, now we need a warehouse management system because we've got a different business model or whatever, or we outsource our procurement or whatever we do, you'll be able to train your users to the new vision and new strategy very, very quickly.
I think that's it. Again, it goes back to embed and sustain change. WalkMe. So I think there's always that piece around organizations just don't invest enough in business change management. Okay. So what is WalkMe? WalkMe is just your next generation means of disseminating really good content to users so that they can pick up, embed and sustain the change and orchestrate the processes going forward. It comes at a cost, but then good change management comes at a cost,
But it doesn't, like, change management is absolutely essential. It's almost the first thing to get dropped when budgets get tight and timelines get tight. It's the wrong thing to do. But I think my challenge with WalkMe and tools like that, they gave it a name, Digital Adoption Platform. Who even knows what that means? It threw me when I heard it first. Call it what it is. It's an online training buddy that's going to help you.
It's your training copilot, isn't it?
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. Call it what it is. Now, don't. And that's the problem with our industry. We keep on reinventing words and reinventing terminology.
Right.
To do what?
Right. Let's move on to the next thing. Right. So this makes me rock in a dark room. I saw this and it just makes me rock. Okay. It really, my head explodes every time I see the name. Open text. What the bejesus is open text doing in this modern tool chain? Just what's going on, Paul?
I hate it. It's very difficult to make it work. It shouldn't be as difficult. Yeah, they're going to build in their AI as well, but it's always been a dog. I can't see it changing.
Yeah, I just don't get it. I mean, I just keep. I thought when RPA came along and we had the RPA catalog, that most of OpenText should have been replaced by bots.
Yeah.
And then even today, I don't understand why OpenText isn't just carved up into agentic AI and binned and just baked into the suite across the
Yeah.
line of business. I just don't see the value in it.
But
I get
now you,
Tricent.
now you know we've just lost all of our open text view,
I don't
audience.
I don't care. I get Tricentis, but Synity and OpenText, I don't get.
Yeah.
I don't get. I mean, finally, the last bit is BCP being included. That doesn't feel right to me. BCP part of the tool chain.
I think it should be at the end of the tool chain for your continuous improvement. You want to try some stuff, and it does help by not putting stuff into the core.
Yep, I
And
get that. I get all
we're
of that.
we're not into we talked about clean core a little bit. I'm a
I'm a tidy core person. I
yeah.
believe in tidy core. You know,
So you can
80/20
do
rule.
all of your innovations, all of your little experimental stuff over in BTP. Uh, I think you're right, actually. Let's not continue to complicate things. You've got your simple tool chain, your LeanIX, your Signavio, your ALM. Be done with that. Your WalkMe. Be done with that. Let's not just extend the tool chain past. Uh,
Well,
well, now,
everything we spoke about so far are really good enablers. Fantastic. BTP is a pass. Okay, it is an application in its own right, multi-headed Hydra. It ain't part of the tool chain. It's something different. Um, it's
but it is.
quintessentially part of the solution.
It's not part of your tool chain to get implemented and getting up and running, but it is way out there for your future wannabe stuff that what is it now? There's 60 different applications in there. There used to be
Yeah.
93.
Look, tool chain. BTP in terms of the development frameworks,
Yeah.
I'd say no. No, that's somewhere almost think about SAP should say you got your tool chain and then have your foundry. And in the foundry services, you've got your integration. Okay, sitting in BTP, you've got integration and then you've got build and build across ABAP, build across SAP build, whatever. Do you know what I mean? I
Agentic
just think
AI, all that stuff. Yeah.
just keep them set. You've got the foundry services for build, whether you want, and then you've got your tool chain. They're different things with
But
different audiences, different skill sets, different users.
do you think BTP is in Foundry? I would say it's more in continuous improvement.
No, I'd say it straddles both implementation and
Okay, yeah, yeah.
continuous,
I'll, I'll go with that.
it's a foundry service. And I mean, I don't, I mean, per se, we were saying BTP is over 12 years old.
Yeah,
It was SCP. It's
yeah.
by far SAP's best product in the last decade until Joule. I mean, Joule is sort of like groundbreaking, but I think up until Joule, BTP SCP was really good. No change there whatsoever. I just think that don't complete the tool chain construct's really good. Absolutely love it. Don't confuse it with um, the Foundry services, which come out of BTP, which is different.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is you keep your tool chain as slim and as functional as possible, not turn it into a cat of nine tails,
Yeah, yeah.
and because you've got too many things going on. And most organizations are not. It depends on their level of maturity, on where they are and where they need to get to. So by having all of these tool sets, people are going to get confused or
Because
continue to be confused.
I tell you why it's a bit confusing as well, is because a lot of the methodologies. So SAP's got some really good methodology. So
Mhm.
there's a specific methodology around integration, as you know. Um, they don't really sit in the tool chain. I just think that the tool chain's the tool chain. I mean, it's enabling technology, enabling applications to suspend, to enable us to embed and sustain change. But I think the both BTP core services are services. They're part of the application architecture. One of the big fundamentals has been that SAP weren't always particularly good at saying to customers, when you move down the S4 path, it's S4 plus BTP. You've got a sidecar, and that's SAP's problem
Okay.
in terms of not being clear about what S4 really was.
But I a couple of points there. I'm going to completely agree with you. Like where you say the movement into business suite rather than a named product. You're not calling it ECC, you're not calling it
Yeah,
S4, you're calling it whatever. Business suite, line for business, all good. Moving forward. Uh,
yeah,
so the fact that they're moving things into Toolchain, you get your ERP and your implementation and your methodology,
yeah,
your Toolchain is over there, your BTP and stuff over somewhere else. If you could segregate them all off into separate pieces and go, bang, use that for that, use that for that, use that for that, instead of trying to bundle it all up together,
yeah.
and everyone's got confused.
I think it's also there's the need to understand how it all fits together. I mean, and I think that's again about saying, look, you have to think about this as an enterprise architect. You need that enterprise architect's view because you need to be able to demonstrate how this all fits together. Okay, and
And
where the
that's where
value
you
is.
need, decent architects. I spoke to a guy yesterday. He's Michael, great guy, and we talked about everything. Uh, he was on the enterprise architecture piece. Um, it was we had a really brilliant chat, and he was so open. He's been, I think, 12 or 14 years with SAP. We talked Remedy Street, we talked
Yeah,
Toolchain, we talked architecture, we talked BTP, we talked everything. And just because he was working with SAP, he wasn't excluding Remedy Street or anything else. He was like, bring it in. Tell me what good is it going to do? Where's the value add from it? Brilliant, you
I
know?
think. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I mean, I think we're moving into a sort of like a different period now. And I think some of the SIs and the providers are really struggling because they're just not geared up for this. But, as I said before, we're moving away from rip it out, start again. So that might mean that some of our legacy architecture is going to be upcycled, and we're good at upcycling because you upcycle the foundation so that you can focus on where the value proposition really sits around AI, some of the other stuff going forward. You only got to stick your money where it adds value. And it doesn't, and if it means that you can now focus on the business suite, which is line of business, it then means that some of your line of business can sit in S4 and some of your line of business can sit in ECC. It's as simple as that. I think what we're going to see, and I think this is my last observation, I think you're going to we'll see probably in November, Christian Klein announcing a new licensing model. Okay. Because I think up until now, SAP's strategy was that by end of 2025, it will be a cloud only organization and the bulk of its revenue will be coming from the cloud. Okay. When they set that target, AI didn't really exist in how it does now. So,
Yeah.
the last 2 to 3 years has been an absolute revolution, and that's changed everything. That's also changed SAP strategy. So I don't think it's fundamentally a problem for a Christian client to stand up and say in November, okay, 2027 really doesn't matter anymore for ECC, okay, because we're moving into a different path now. We're going to rejig our licensing because it's more about line of business. So because that's what he's talked about in November, which is joining the dots, which is about starting to upsell the business suite. They've moved on in terms of the thinking to now the business suite and the line of business. That's just a framework. It's not really real at the moment. There's no detail behind that. But as they move forward, you'll start to see S4 carved out into being more modular, okay, more composable, which means that can sit in Rise or that can sit in Grow, depending on which route you're going down. But it might mean that you're still left with a legacy ECC tail. And
Yeah.
I go back to something David Lawson said a couple of years ago to me in terms of what CAP were seeing in terms of the bigger SAP customers, which is they were seeing customers moving to S4 by line of business. So they
Yeah.
were seeing stuff sitting in ECC and sitting in S4. And I think that's the way it's panned out. I mean, ultimately the market's determined how they consume S4, not SAP. The market's got to determine how they consume the business suite. And I think SAP on top of that, and I think the strategy is really good at the moment.
Well, I'm going to upset you here now because we've already looked at the new licensing model.
Yeah.
Because we've gone from perpetual to
Yeah.
FUE. FUE is dead.
Yeah.
We're now on per user per month. So I don't want to say I told you so, but I did. It had to happen. Is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? Let's wait and see. I think you're spot on with the let's get away from ECC or S4. It's line of business suite, continuous improvement.
Yeah.
Let's not hang a name on it. And they're classic. Naming it cloud ERP, private cloud ERP, or ERP cloud for public, right? So they're dropping the S4 name completely, which is great because people are hanging on it for no reason.
I think it's right. I mean, but I just think also, yeah, I think it's spot on. I mean, I do a shout out to our good friend Alex, okay, who goes on all the time about moving to S4, leave ECC behind, and about it's a poor decision to stay on ECC. And I think there's a bit which says you're sort of right, you're sort of wrong, because if you could work with an organization, if you looked at an organization and said, do you know what, there's stuff which integrated business planning does really well, which doesn't sit in APO, and you've got to come to APO end, then you'd focus on that APO demise, and you'd look at what sits in S4, what sits in IBP. And then if you also looked at an organization and said, well, do you know what, drops shipment really makes sense, advanced available to promise really makes sense, you're starting to see a line of business carve out which says some of my stuff can stay in S4, or some of my stuff should be in S4, some of my stuff should be in ECC. I don't want to really do a complete re-implementation. I don't want to do all of that because I don't have the time, I don't have the money, my business resources stretched, and I've got other priorities. So Paul, help me do drop shipment and AATP without having to re-engineer my entire ERP stack. And that's going to be the ask, isn't it, going forward?
Yeah, but the challenge there for me, if you're going to keep sort of ECC with your aggregates, with your indices, I know you need to be able to, the amount of traffic is going to go forward for your business suite. I'm stopped calling it S4 and I'm just going to call it business suite.
Yeah.
From there's every time you create an order, every time you do any procurement, you're going to just have to send it back to, let's just say warehouse is still in ECC, for example. You're just going to have to, it'd be so much traffic and integration going on. It's just going to kill you. So you're going to have to drop the legacy stuff and move on.
No, of course you don't. You can, there's look, a well-built API architecture. I mean, it's in SAP's interest anyway, because then you're basically focusing around BTP and sort of like integration suite anyway as your integration hub, and all you do is you're building out some APIs, but the cost of an API vis-a-vis ripping it out. I mean, there's a trade-off, isn't there, between organizational impact and the amount of money you want to throw in replacing a legacy ECC system onto an S4 system, which is pretty similar in terms of what it does, or focus on the stuff which adds real value. And I don't think there's a problem with a legacy ECC sitting there, because we were talking the other day about a client you've got at the moment and something I've just recently done, whereby late on in the day, the customers realize that they want to do some archiving. Okay. Because going back to my hatred of the data migration partners at the moment is always that bit about, well, we want to do a time slice data migration. So we're not taking all the data with us. Quite right. What are we going to do? Well, you've got to archive it. Not our problem, son. Someone else will fix it. Then the organisation are left. What do we do in terms of archiving? Someone says open text. We all go, oh, you're joking, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then we go from there. Then we always end up with, do you know what? Easiest thing to do is stick ECC on read only for a while. So you've still got ECC in the architecture, haven't you? You've not demised your hosting. You've not done anything. It's still there.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I know neither of us like open text, but you've got so many other places you can archive stuff. You can put it
Yeah,
on, Azure Fabric, AWS. You can put it in GCP. You can put it wherever because they've all got a tool set in there to put it in, and
I,
and
I,
it's
I
not
agree.
gone away.
I agree totally. I mean, back in the day, we used to have Ixos. So I'm showing my age. Ixos
Yeah,
was out there back in the 90s, and the early R3, big R3 implementations used to take Ixos as its archiving tool. I remember when we were moving sort of like country specific R3s to regional or global R3s would have Ixos, and Ixos either did the data archiving or did the print archiving. Nothing's really changed all that time. And that's where we go back to. I think my last view was, although we've got product singularity and tech singularity racing forward, the fundamentals never change. You're still going to have to archive, you
yeah.
still got to train people. You've still got to migrate data. You've still got to do interfaces. It's all the same. Still, the building blocks for success are the same, whatever happens.
And look, there's archiving is always a touchy subject when you come up to it, but when you're looking at managing your data going forward, your data is only ever going to grow. So every 5, 7, are ongoing. You should be archiving on a regular basis every year, financial close. Get rid of the old stuff, shove it in the archive. You don't need it anymore. It's in read only. It's still available. It's not
Yeah,
gone away.
I mean the whole point of having your sort of like your BW, and BW is not going anywhere. But the whole
Well,
point of
BW
having,
for well, BW, but they'll move it to BW for HANA.
yeah, absolutely. But your BW is not going to go anywhere, right? Um, and when you look at it from a FP&A or an IBP perspective, you do need historical data because you need a historical comparison. So there is a need for some data, but as part of your phase zero and looking at your data strategy, one of the first things we always look at is not what historical data do you need because you want to keep it, but having the informed conversation with the business in terms of what does your FP&A look like? What does your integrated business planning look like? What historical data do you need to fuel to FP&A and IBP? Because that then gives you your subset of data you really need to retain. And then it's easy, very easy then to say the rest of it, boom.
But
I'm,
now
I'm
now you're going back to the actual fundamentals of it, right? Which is 100% correct. Instead of looking at your historical data for forecasting, which is flawed,
yeah.
uh, your FP&A should be able to tell you how is our business growing, right? Yes, you need historical data for that, but what most people do, let's take COVID as an example. People go, oh, well, we sold that much between 2020 and 2022. Forget those numbers. Your customer habits have changed. From 2019, your customer habits have changed. Post-COVID, your customer habits have changed. And they may continue to change. So yes, you need historical data as a comparison, but to grow your business, you need, FP&A data that's bringing you forward, not looking. You are looking forward and looking backwards at the
But
same
I
time.
think my point is, it's not a difficult one. If you ask, if you're after, it's like, you ask the right question, you get the right answer. You're then able to determine very, very quickly what data you're then going to archive. And then you
Yeah,
can then very, very quickly build out, okay, here's my work package for FP&A, and in FP&A, I need to have some historical data because I need to have my comparisons. That's it. And then you've got it in your plan. You've got your team. You've done all your work in terms of my volumetrics, my resourcing to deliver that. It's in the work package. Jobs are good, and you'll deliver it. Everyone's happy.
but
Easy.
you've hit the nail on the head again. It's business benefits. What do you want out of your system?
Yeah.
Right? What information do you need from your business? Let's not over-engineer it
I think the
with a
other
whole
thing
bunch of
is that
ERP stuff.
there's the bit about saying, well, look, when you look at a data fabric, you have the ability to index all your data across your enterprise. So you know all the data you've got and you know where it's sitting. Okay. Some of that's going to go into archiving, some of it's going to go into sort of like read-only data repositories. Fantastic. But you know where it all is. And the whole point is that your AI sitting on top of your data fabric is able to then look at your aggregated data because it knows where it's sitting. And if you then said, Paul, one day I'm a CFO and for whatever reason I need to pull together this information and it will be based upon some historical data, my data fabric architecture will be able to source that and pull it together. Okay.
Yep.
And then your AI will also be able to piece it to fill some of the gaps as well if it has to. But that doesn't mean you need to retain all that data.
But isn't that back to the question gone, do the organizations know what they need to know? They don't know the questions to ask. And that's where we come in.
Yeah, exactly. But I think you're able to say, I can't plan everything, but I can make some big assumptions in terms of what you might want to be thinking about going forward without the detail and saying, well, but I'll tell you where the data will be sitting if you ever need it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can tap and unwrap it again.
So is it too much of a say, forget everything you know, organizations, because we're now entering a brave new world?
I think sort of. I think you could say, even though we're entering a brave new world in terms of tech singularity, the fundamentals never change. And because the fundamentals never change, you can make some informed decisions in terms of, I don't need it all around me. Okay, I don't need all that baggage. I can archive a lot of this stuff and get rid of a lot of this stuff. And if I ever need it, I know where I need to go. But it's basically now packed away, locked away, stored somewhere safe where the TCO is cheap. If I need it, I can go back to it. But I'm not taking it forward in terms of my enterprise architecture going forward. I've almost got my archive architecture sitting there, which is linked to my data fabric. So I've got my live data fabric in terms of what I need to run my business every day. And then I've got the stuff which is locked away somewhere, which if I need to untap it and map it, I will. And it's as simple as that.
Spot on. 100%, mate.
Good. All right. Good conversation, Paul, as always.
Great.
See you later.
Take care.